Tired of hiring the wrong people? Are you having a hard time getting people to apply to your job postings? You ain't alone. And today, Dana will help us restructure how we find the right people to join your team. So, Dana, thank you for joining us.
Hey, Andre, it's great to be here.
Dana, you're the CEO and co-founder of Family Harmony Roadmap, which is a recent newer project. But can you explain to the listeners why I'm asking you these questions? Because you do have a background in recruiting and hiring the right people, and you had a formula that works.
Yep, absolutely. So upon graduation, I worked for Anderson Consulting, one of the big consulting firms at the time in New York. And I was hired to be an executive recruiter and do organizational development consulting. And I realized a few years in, I was great at my job, but I'm an entrepreneur. I didn't want to work for anyone else. So I started my first recruiting firm that was an absolute train wreck. Then collaborated with a good friend, and we developed an executive recruiting firm, and it was mostly retained, where we got paid ahead of time. Then the industry changed and it went to contingency in 2008 when the market crashed. So we had to come up with a value for our clients. So real quick to explain that, retained, you get paid ahead of time. Contingency, you're competing with a lot of other people and you don't get paid till later. So we had to look at what value can we give them. So what we did was we would go in and look at the entire team. And instead of hiring what they thought, we'd make sure that's what they really needed. I got really great at it. I learned a lot of techniques. And recently, over the last couple of years, sold my firm and decided I wanted to do something different. I do have some business coaching clients, but predominantly I work with families. So I took the same concept and moved it over to families.
Okay. So we've talked a couple times here. I'm struggling finding engineers and drafters in the technical world here. It's not a secret anymore. Labor pool is going to be very, very tight for the next 15 years. And I was sharing with you some of my struggles, and you asked me, what do you want? And then later on, you changed it to, what do you actually need? That's not what I need. You said, this is what you need. So having that said, I want to start off, but why is it so difficult to find the right people? Because you kept using the term, the right people. I'm looking at, I just need an engineer, I need a drafter, I need an admin. But you said, well, what's the right person? Can you go more about that?
Right, absolutely. So when you're asking, what is the right person? So you need an engineer. Well, if you ask me as a layperson, I have no idea what that means. So if you can look at it as if you were buying a home, it's a really good analogy. You wouldn't just go say, I need a 3-bedroom because I have 2 kids and a wife. No, you would make a list of the things that you need. And I think what's really important is that we're so quick to do that and so quick to say it doesn't exist. It's slow down, take a breath. And what do you really need, and what do you want? And with some of the things that I do, it really identifies that. So you can kind of take it apart and look at that with the system. And I can explain that to you if you want.
Please.
Okay. So when you and I spoke first, I said, to make it simple, you have to brain dump. What are all of the things that you really want and that you need? And I think what happens is you come up with 10 things. Well, it really isn't 10. So another analogy is, just suppose we were sitting in front of a computer, write down every single thing that you'd want, including all of the things that you don't want to do. You're now hiring someone, you have an opportunity, right?
So you're saying about stuff about what I don't want to do, not necessarily what that person's to do.
Both.
Okay.
Both is important. And the reason both is important is, one, it's really important to be clear what you want. And not only what you want, but also what you need. So you've got to look at the needs in the moment and put it in a computer and just pretend you push the button and your 3D printer printed that human and they were in front of you. That's the ideal. Well, is that going to happen? Absolutely not. You just spoke about how the markets are getting thinner and thinner. So you've got to then narrow it down to what is really important in that for your company, short term and also long term.
Okay. So it's not necessarily what I need now, it's what I need long term.
Both. You don't want to be stuck saying, I just hired this engineer that has these 3 qualifications because I have 50 projects and I'm overwhelmed. And my spouse is telling me, why aren't you home for dinner? You're taking too much time and doing work you shouldn't be doing. Yeah. Right? So you're already investing the time, energy, and money into the short term, you've also got to look at future. You know, where do you want to be a year, 5 years, 10 years from now? And how can this person fit into that model?
Like, I don't know if the listeners, like, to me, this is the first time I hear this concept. Usually it's what, here's a job description, get the person that you need. But to start talking about looking at my needs, the company needs, the now and the future, no recruiter or HR person has really explained it to me in this way. So that's why it's a bit confusing to me. Why is that not more understood? Because it's making a lot of sense to me.
Okay.
I'll tell you one thing. I do know I did a lot of short-term hires. By that, I mean, I hired for what I needed right now. And then when I really got to the future, like, no, they're not the right person for that future, because I never looked at it that way. It was right now, reactive. I guess it's a reactive hire.
Yes. So let's talk about the makeup of an entrepreneur, okay, which includes myself. So we're so busy doing everything we're doing, and we think we're in control of it all, right? And we think first, I can't hire someone because I can do it much better. Okay, that's the mindset. Then
Yeah.
something happens. You go to strategic coach, you have an EOS implementer in there, whatever happens, right? You have all these changes, and you finally, the light bulb goes off, and you say, yes, I have to hire an engineer. Absolutely right. And what's the first thing? I'll never be able to find what I want. We already set ourselves up. Right there, we're negative. So instead, change it to a positive. Great opportunity to not only create the individual I want, I can take things off of my plate that I don't necessarily want to do anymore, and take it another step further. Not part of my unique ability, not what I'm great at.
For a lot of us, that's hard to do because we're selfish to hire someone to do all the easy stuff that we can do, even though we don't want to. We feel
Correct.
guilty to hire someone to do that. That's crap work for me. Why would I get someone else to do crap work? But
Right.
that crap work could be their fun work.
Exactly. And you're taking the integrity away from the people that is their fun work. You're making a judgment on them. People love to do that.
Yeah. Like I'm still, my head's getting a little still wrapped around the concept about what I need now, but also what I need in the future. That hire for the future, I don't know if that's a common thought process in any entrepreneur, or the majority of the entrepreneurs to think that way. Like, honestly, this is the first time I really understand. Maybe I didn't hear you the first 100 times we talked about it, but now they just sunk in now. And I just saw myself. That's probably one of the biggest mistake I did, was hiring for now, not necessarily for future growth, which explains why some people had to leave, because they're only good for that now and had no ability to grow. Or maybe I wasn't seeing them to do the growth for the future, and I just sabotaged them too. That's another thought too. So what are the biggest, okay, go ahead. You want to follow up?
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No.
I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
follow up.
So simple. If you're hiring someone, you want to make sure that they're going to grow with you. Dan Sullivan's great question. If you and I were sitting here together in 1 year's time, what's it going to look like, right? Thank you, Dan Sullivan, for changing the world. But it's really important that your values, that what you want and what you see for your future. Now, you can't expect someone new coming in to understand your future. You know it in your head, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, and I think it's a disservice to hire someone short term, not only for them, but for your company, and really for yourself. It's a danger. It's a danger. So what's most important is, one, obviously, have a clear vision of where you want your company. And then think back. So if your vision for your company is you want your engineering firm to have 15 senior engineers, and you want to be $100 million in 5 years, what does it take to get there? So if you can work backwards, then you can see what you need. Now, what happens a lot of times with entrepreneurs is we're at the $500,000 area, 500 million, whatever it is, the number, we're halfway there and everything's falling apart. Why? Because we're not thinking about the future. So you've got to look at what skill set do you need now, and what skill set do you need in the future. And it doesn't mean that you can't train someone. It doesn't mean that they can't get the knowledge somewhere. It means you need to be aware of the knowledge they need and what are the roads to get there.
But if I'm also looking for the skill sets, it's not only what skill sets does the company need for the future?
Correct.
It's not necessarily I have those skill sets. So I need someone else that has it. But I'm
Correct.
thinking about the now. I already have the skill sets to run what I'm running now. I don't need someone else to do that. So I hire for now. Then later on with that growth, it was like, crap, it would have been nice if they were able to manage or they're able to have a business acumen. But I didn't look for that at the time.
Exactly. But if you were thinking forward,
Yeah.
if you can get into the thinking forward mindset. So I would sit down with clients when and say to them, and even now when I'm coaching CEOs, I'll say, okay, give me an idea. Where do you want to be in 5 years? And what does that look like? Well, now you have what it looks like. And if you go backwards, what does it take to get there? So you'll know that the person you hire today needs to have these skills in 5 years. The thing, a lot of the times what happens with entrepreneurs is that we all do it. I still do it. We build up the workload so much that we need someone immediately.
Yes.
So
Guilty.
we shoot from the hip.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're shooting from my shooting. We all do it. When we shoot from the hip, the result can't be perfect. There's no way.
Well, don't use that P word. Can't be
Right, well, okay.
can't be excellent.
It can't be excellent. Good point. It can't be. It's not worth it. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Time that it takes to hire people and the money that it takes, you want to do it right the first time.
Yeah. And then when you're in desperation mode, that's when you start hiring the best of the worst.
Correct. And I also think core values are a huge issue. You need to talk to people. So my unique ability, I'm a fabulous salesperson.
Yes,
My
you are.
number one value, I compete between God and my family. So if you want me to sell a product that I'm going to be on the road 5 days a week, but I'm a great salesperson, I can do the job, I may not be the best candidate.
Right.
But you fall in love with me and you're like, oh my gosh, everyone says Dana Weinberger can sell. I'm just going to hire her and it's going to work out. No, no.
Okay, so now we've listed off a few big mistakes entrepreneurs do when they decide to hire someone. One is hiring too late when you
Correct.
need them, not looking forward. And that's the thing is I started to, is I decided about a year ago, is I got to start hiring for the future, not for the now. So I know we're going to be busy, so I need to hire now. So by the time we get that ramp up, we have the people in place. Hiring ourselves, looking for people that can do what we do is a mistake.
If they can do what you do, why don't they own the company that you own?
Such a simple reply that's very slap in your face, clearly like very easy to understand, but still we fall in the trap all the time. But like for me, that's what I kept looking for a me, but it's true. It can't hire another me because we're all unique. And that's the thing. We each have our own companies because of what we do, but we have to start looking at hiring people to support us in our areas of weakness or areas that we don't have a passion to work in. Like for me, I'm really good at engineering reports. I have no passion for it. I'm well known for it. But now I need to have teams that can build those reports. And I just do the final review, or I do the specific reports that are very challenging and that I got passion to solve. So calculations, drop things. So I think like you, I think that's also what you're referring to at the beginning. What do you need and what do you no longer want to do? Right. Is hiring that. So what other mistakes do you think entrepreneurs do when they decide to hire?
I think it's keeping themselves in a box when you're looking for people to hire.
Yeah, can you explain on what do you mean by a box?
Sure.
What kind of box?
So maybe you use an executive recruiting firm, or maybe you go on LinkedIn. You really have your who's right there. You know, think out of the box. So an example could be you have people on LinkedIn that do a similar job that you do. Send them a message, pick up a phone and call them, find them. Say, hey, I know you're number one, number two, you're great in your industry. This is what I'm looking for. Who do you know?
Oh, who do you know? Not do you want to come?
Well,
no.
Oh, if they want to come, they will then say, wait, what about me? At the same time, you're not pushing them. You're not being a salesperson. You're not selling the role. Who do you know that could be just like you?
Jesus.
Okay. And another thing where I find great success, let's take your engineering. Most people, not all people come out of college, but most people either come out of a university with the talent, or they know everyone, even if someone worked their way
Right.
up. So engineering, what's the top engineering school in Canada, for instance? Call the dean and say, hey, who is huge in your alumni? I have a great opportunity.
Right.
And you're networking, and people don't do that. It's a 1-second call. And for me, if the CEO calls the dean's going to call back, and it may be just worth your 10 minutes of time. And you may be establishing a relationship that you can use for other roles in the future.
So you're talking about non-conventional thinking here. Everyone just posted on Indeed or monster.com or on LinkedIn, and then we sit back and kick up our feet and wait. You're talking about doing it something a little uniquely and more direct.
Correct. And you just said something very important. We all are getting the same 10 people that are applying, and 10 years ago it was 100. So if
Right.
you're right, so if you want to find the cream of the crop are not the people necessarily in the same channels that you're used to. You've got to expand. So instead of
Get out of the
advertising,
conventional, traditional.
get out of the conventional, it's not going to work. And I think it's going to even get tighter going forward.
Okay, so having that said, does that mean throwing more money at them and more perks, more ping pong tables at lunchtime? Or what do you think is the difference now? Because like in my engineering world, there's a lot of people who are not really good at that skill set, want a lot of money and do less work. So throwing away a lot more money, I'm not necessarily going to get the right person. What do you think is the trend now for getting the right people? Because you said something about culture.
Right. I think it's people that are aligned with your culture. So when we had spoken, I said to you, Andre, do they have to be in the office? Do they have to be in Canada? Do they have to be in the US?
Right.
You know, we have a whole world. Thank you, Zoom, right? Thank you, COVID. There's some positive that came out of COVID. We have a whole world. So thinking again, out of the box, does this person have to be in the office? Now, let's say they do have to be in the office. What makes you stand out? And there's plenty of things you can do. Maybe you offer options later. Maybe you offer a piece of the company later.
Right.
Something that's going to really entice them. Work from home a couple days a week, whatever that is. But again, initially, it's figuring out what you as a company, what your core values are.
Yeah, core values is the term you use. Sorry, and not culture. Yeah.
Okay, core values, and what is that person's core values? It's not always just about money.
Right. It's no longer it's no longer a job is the trend I'm seeing.
Correct. It's no longer a job.
Okay.
No, people used to go to work to make money to better their future. I think people go to work now to make money in the moment, to have a great life in the moment, right? The future thinking I've noticed, especially with the new generation. I have 2 kids that are in their 30s, and I have nephews that are in their 20s. There's a huge difference in the 30s and the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
What do I have? How much? What's the minimum I have to make?
Right.
So if you have that mentality, you have to work with that mentality. So it's not just about making money anymore. It's also the quality.
Yeah. And then the other thing too, I've noticed too, is a lot of people have blurred the lines between cost of living versus cost of lifestyle.
Right.
So,
Correct.
so those were a few of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs can do when they decide to hire. One last question about the biggest mistake. The entrepreneur being involved in the hiring, is that a mistake?
Oh, it's a necessity.
Whoa, that's non-traditional thinking.
No,
Tell me
not.
more.
Okay, so the exercise I did with you, I call it brain dumping. Write every single thing you do in your job. And if it isn't your level, it's a director of engineering, and you're looking for the director of engineering that's 2 levels under you. Everything that person does in their job. What's the goal? And then look at the people around them, right? This is a little off what you're asking, but it's really important. The people around them, there's nothing that says you can't change people's roles a little bit. When you hire me, you think you know my unique ability, and I may have other things in my toolbox. Move people around till you find that right fit of what you really need. And then once you find that, who's steering the company? Is your HR person steering the company?
No.
Are they future thinking the company?
No.
Well, then how do you expect them to tell me, as suppose you hire me as your VP of sales, your HR person is going to tell me the future of the company. I want to hear it from you. I want to hear the passion. I want to hear what it looks like. I want to know that I can have a conversation with you as the CEO. And the old thinking was not to do that. And I think it's so important. It's relationship building.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me. So like right now, what I do in the engineering is we have admin actually does the phone call interview or Zoom interview for a culture check, validation or confirmation of the resume and their technical skills. We use the Colby. If that Colby matches my job for that job, then bring him in for an interview. And then that's when I'm involved there to explain, the culture, the reasons, and how we work. And it's completely different. And I gave that up, that last part, for a while, and we really hired a bunch of duds. The team did hire a bunch of duds. And I think that was the missing part, is the people, if they would have known what I wanted, well, they left because of what the company wanted out of them, and didn't get that information up front because no one else can communicate it. Never thought of it that way. Thank you.
Yeah. The other thing too is we're all human, right? And
Most.
don't you feel good when someone values you? How amazing is it that you get a call from the CEO that wants to talk to you? So to backtrack, you talked about having a handful of applicants out there, or candidates, whatever you want to call them. Well, let me tell you, if you called me as the CEO, I'm going to feel a lot better than I am for the HR person that's sending me everything online and doesn't even Zoom me until the final interview. Right? So it's a feel good. And if that's your culture, and your culture is an open door policy, and you want to hear people's perspective, and you want their unique ability to help the company move forward, then how great is that? You want a relationship with me. Doesn't matter. You want a relationship with me. I'm going to offer you something that you don't have.
You just use a bunch of words there. Has not been in the vocabulary of workers and employers for decades. Well, since I've been around, is a relationship. We're not supposed to have, in the past training is, you're not supposed to have a relationship with your workers, employer workers. And you've been using that word relationship a lot today. It's a relationship. I think even for me as being Gen Xer, I wanted relationships, but it was just a faux pas. It just never existed. And that's what I've been doing. So I think that's a key thing for the listeners to hear there, is that relationships is, I think, part of the core values. This is important as well. So to end this off, Dana, this is really good. Like, even I learned more than what we've talked to in the past. So this is fantastic. So what can entrepreneurs do better to improve the chances of hiring and finding the right one?
Clarity.
One word: clarity. On who, what you need, and what you need.
And okay, so to start with, the most important thing is what you as the CEO, you as the entrepreneur, want for your future and your company's future. You have to start with that. You have to start with that, or you're hiring from the hip and it's not going to last. Somebody's going to get frustrated.
Wow. Man, we can just end it right here. That was fantastic.
Let me give you one more tip, that once you hire the person, which is totally off character, but I think, again, this is so important. And
what, adding one more thing's out of character?
Right. Well, this is once you hire. Okay.
Once you hire. Gotcha.
Once you hire. Now, remember, I come from the recruiting world where you only get paid when you hire someone, and then there's usually a guarantee. So I always had to think, like, how am I going to make sure my people are going to stay there for at least the 120 days? I want my money. Or in the team world, you get your money, you'd have to give it back. I call it evaluate and communicate. E/C. Have meetings. The supervisor needs to meet with the person they hire. So if you're the CEO and you hired that COO, I used to meet with my recruiters every single Friday. And when I was on vacation or on my days off, I would do it immediately the day I got back. What's working? What's not working? What do you think, Andre, your wins were for the week? Where could you improve?
Right.
And if you do that, again, open communication, and you're establishing, again, how we talk about that relationship.
Yeah. And actually, we do that very well here. For your first 4 weeks, we meet weekly. what's working, what's not, what tools do you need
Good point.
to get to win more, so you can win. And then we continue weekly up to the first month, or we go monthly until the probation's up. But the question we ask is, what do you need from us for you to succeed? And they feel heard, and it's a good conversation. It really builds a relationship, like you said. So that is awesome.
Gotcha. Oh,
So you got one more thing?
Oh, no, I really think, again, clarity in all of this is the big one.
And I think that it's the clarity of what I want as the entrepreneur. And we've been trained, or the industry, the traditional industry is saying, well, what does the company need? Or what can we do for that person to convince? So the job description is written for the person to apply, not necessarily what the company needs. What do I need to get off my plate? What do I need to get off my plate in the future? Or even what the company wants to do in the future. I think that's a whole different concept of, like, I'm still reeling. I know a lot of listeners are going, holy shit, do I feel dumb? That makes so much sense once it's pointed out, but that's fine. I'm feeling really, really dumb too. So you're not alone out there. Okay. So know what you want and what you need for yourself and the company. Then that helps you roll into what you need and want from a person, your next hire. Core values are more important nowadays, and they have to be aligned with the person you're hiring. And guess what? What I learned the hard way is you cannot convert other people's core values to match yours. So if it doesn't fit in that interview, say bye-bye. And entrepreneurs must be part of hiring, or like you said, it's a necessity. And you explain why, because we are the visionaries. We're passion. They can hear the passion, and it's more believable and more clear. So perfect. So Dana, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing this information.
Oh, absolutely. It's fun for me.
Yeah.
This is my world, so it's fun for me.
But I do want, if you can just take a minute and plug what you're working on now, because I think that's as important as your knowledge for recruiting, because what you're doing next is it's needed out there, and I really love what you're doing.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, absolutely. So what I realized in all my coaching was the same common thread. Entrepreneurs especially wanted more time with their family, a better marriage, better communication. So my daughter and I, my daughter's an occupational therapist and I'm a proud mama, we created the Family Harmony Roadmap. So we have a system similar to that I did in recruiting on how to see who you are. We use assessments, we use print, we use Colby, we use Strength Finders, and we figure out who each individual person is in the family, how they work, just as you would in a company, and what's working, what isn't working. We come up with strategies for the individual. Then we meet with the family, come up with strategies for the family, and create an amazing communication system. So we're seeing a lot of results.
Well, that's great. I'm going to have what's your website?
www.familyharmonyroadmap.com.
All right. We'll also put that in the show notes, so it's easier for everyone to find. And please take a look at their website, and I highly recommend it. Dana really knows what she's doing and cares, and is your daughter. I'm sure the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, so it'd be a really great service to have. So, Dana, thank you for, yeah.
Andre, one more thing. If anyone has any questions, feel free to go on my website on this business stuff and email me. I have no problem answering. I mean, this is like second nature to me. It's all I've done for 35 years.
Yeah, and you're such a shy person, so it's very surprising.
Exactly.
So again, Dana, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I learned a lot. I know a lot of people learn from this too. So you, the listener, what do you want for your future, for you and your company? And then think about that when you do the next hire. So what do you want for the future? So Dana, thank you. And to you, the listener, thanks again for learning with me.